ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. I want to thank you for taking time from your Sunday evening to join us as we talk about a very important topic, one you may already be familiar with. According to a recent USA Today article, El Paso just made a top 10 list which isn't exactly worthy of celebrating. That top 10 list shows El Paso as one of the least affordable cities to live in. The article quotes a company called Good Hire, a background screening software company. Now here's the list that you're watching right now, and you can see the city of El Paso made number 7. The closest cities are Modesto, California at number 6 and New York City. That's right, New York City at number 8. According to the article, El Paso may have more expensive housing costs as well as lower wage growth, but more companies are either opening shop in the borderland while other companies are expanding. Good Hire says it took several factors into consideration: wage growth, unemployment rate, job growth, job openings, rental prices, real estate sales prices, and real per capita personal income. When we talk about these factors, these are current conditions, but we want to talk about the outlook as the borderland emerges from the pandemic. Here to navigate us through factors that landed El Paso as one of the least affordable cities to live in is Brian Myra, financial advisor with Capital Management. Thank you, Mr. Myra, for joining us.
So much for having me today.
And also joining us here in the studio, we have Joy Francisco. Ms. Francisco is with Accent Mortgage. So let's get started right away. I want to ask you, Joy, what do you think about this list? Were you surprised that we made number 7 as the least affordable?
I'm not surprised, mainly because of the property taxes in El Paso. They are astronomically high compared to the rest of the U.S., and then they're really high even for Texas.
And it's the highest in Texas, right?
It's the highest in Texas, yes. And so everyone thinks, no, Austin, Travis County, those counties are the highest. But no, actually, El Paso is the highest county for tax rate right now.
And are you surprised when you saw that El Paso number 7 on the least affordable list?
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be that high because there's a lot of things here in El Paso that that are reasonably priced, but when you do get into the housing and the tax situation, like Joy mentioned, we do see it higher here than we see it with a lot of our other clients throughout the state of Texas and other areas.
Brian, you're in a very unique situation where you have offices in New Mexico, obviously Las Cruces, and then up there in Ruidoso. When you compare the cost of living in those places to El Paso, what do you see?
Well, we do find it to be more efficient and less expensive up in Las Cruces and also up in Ruidoso as well. And we also have offices up in Albuquerque. We are less expensive here than what the market is up in Albuquerque. But getting on up into southern New Mexico, the cost of living is a little bit higher here than what we experience up there, especially from a tax standpoint. Now, of course, in New Mexico, we have state property taxes, which we do not have here in Texas. Right. So it kind of offsets, but the property taxes here are pretty high.
Joy, besides property taxes, are there any other factors that you think factored into this being listed this way that perhaps, come out and say, guys, I understand?
So we want to look at the growth in Fort Bliss, the growth in jobs, all of those good things that drive an economy. But then you have a housing shortage everywhere. And it didn't catch up with El Paso until probably in the last 12 months, honestly. And now we're having home buyers go out and have to put 17% over the asking price on a home. We have interest rates the highest that they've ever been in 2 years. And then you couple that with a shortage in housing, and that's even rentals. We're short on rentals as well. So, I'll just go rent, it'll be less expensive. That's not the case anymore. Yeah. We can't do that anymore. I'm seeing rent increase. People are coming to me because their rent is increasing $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 a month.
That's astronomical.
It is astronomical considering, we had someone come to us, they were only paying like $800 for a 2-bedroom apartment. They said they're raising it by $300 monthly. And they're like, I might as well get a house.
Yeah. Brian, the 2020 national census showed El Paso is seeing slowed growth that actually led to our area losing a state district house seat. And then ranking. How much more difficult is it to lure jobs to our area, given these two indicators, slowed growth and least affordable city designation?
Well, from a job standpoint, anytime you take government out and you lose some of that, it's going to have an impact on the jobs growth. And of course, most of our Most of our economy here in El Paso is made up of small business, and as it is mostly across the United States. But it is we are seeing when we see more restrictions put on businesses, and of course some of the because of the inflationary needs and the wage needs. Of course, then you put the red tape on top of trying to run a business. With all of that, it makes it hard to bring employees on and hire employees, and also along with the impact that it's had when the labor force dropped quite a bit, and because of the pandemic, and they started working from home, and a lot of my employer clients have said they're really having trouble finding people to work. So I think it's a combination of things that has created a problem in the jobs market out here to what we see today.
Your thoughts, Joey?
I would agree with him. Actually, people working from home is the #1 reason why housing prices have changed and drastically increased, because you can work anywhere you want now.
Yeah.
Texas is very appealing. Did our economy completely shut down during the pandemic? It did not. It did not completely shut down. And so we have a lot of people coming from other states who want to take advantage of that.
Okay, we're going to take a really quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. When I come back, I'll show you just how much the average and median price of an El Paso home has changed in the past 7 years. My guests will weigh in after the break. This is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition, where news comes first.
Life happens. Plan to get great ER care. Check in online and let us know you're on your way.
It's Chevy Truck Month, and it's time to add the perfect accessories to your new Chevy. Make it bolder. Make it work harder. Make it your own. Find new possibilities. Find new roads. Very well qualified buyers can get 0% financing on most Chevy pickup trucks. Plus, now during Truck Month, get a $1,000 accessory allowance toward the eligible purchase of a new Chevy truck with accessories. Chevy drives Texas. Find new roads.
That's a bag full of Whataburger's Buffalo Ranch chicken strip sandwiches. How long will you have to wait before you enjoy yours? Oh, about that long. Whataburger's Buffalo Ranch chicken strip sandwich is back for a limited time, just like you like it.
Get bracket-busting savings at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso with low interest rates like 1.9% APR for 60 months on all new 2022 Hyundai models in stock. That's 1.9% APR on fan favorites Elantra, Santa Fe's, Tucson, Santa Cruz's, and more. And slam dunk payments as low as $189 a month. That's $189 per month for a brand new Hyundai. But the real Cinderella story this year is zero due at signing on any Hyundai in stock. Get to Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso before the shot clock runs out.
Borderland Local Links. Just scan the QR code on the screen to find hours and specials at your favorite restaurants. Search for activities, sports, and entertainment events your whole family will enjoy. Borderland Local Links, connecting you to things that make life better.
Life happens. Plan to get great ER care. Get specialized pediatric emergency care at Providence Children's Hospital.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Also want to welcome back my guest, Brian Monroe, financial advisor with Capital Management, joining us via Zoom. Also joining us now for the second segment is David Jerome, President and CEO of the El Paso Chamber of Commerce. We are graced right here in the studio by having Joy Francisco. Ms. Francisco is with Accent Mortgage. And I also want to bring up a graphic that you're going to be watching on video, the average and median price of an El Paso home and how it's changed in the past 7 years. According to Texas A&M Real Estate Research Center, in January of 2015, the average price of a home then was $151,000. The median price was $134,000. And there were as many as 7.5 homes available back then. Fast forward to January 2022, the median price skyrocketed to $214,000 with only one home available. Ms. Francisco, how close is this research to reality? It sounds like either home sales are robust or there are few homes available.
This is reality that people are facing in the market. But let's go back to why. Why is it this way? You know, is it inflation? Not necessarily. So everyone likes to talk about the boomer generation. and what a big generation it was. Well, guess what? The second largest generation is now the millennials, and they're all of home buying age. So that is what is driving up prices, along with the fact that the last 10 years, we didn't build that many homes. We built like 5.3 million homes, yet we have a generation now ready for home ownership. So COVID made everything worse, of course, with supply and material issues and labor force and all of that. But at the end of the day, this is a supply and demand issue.
Mr. Jerome, thanks again for joining us. How much pressure does this latest unfavorable distinction put on the chamber to try to attract businesses into our area or help current businesses? This distinction that we're talking about has to do, obviously, with being the least affordable city or joining the list of 10 least affordable cities in the nation.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting perspective. And I'm actually, it doesn't bother me that El Paso is weighted and measured by many different indexes. This is just another one. I think the hiring index there, they were looking at wage and job growth as the biggest weighted factors. And so, and they were ignoring things like cost of living and high amenity cities and things of this sort. So it's a way of looking at it. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it entirely, because coming out of the pandemic, El Paso has shown itself to be extremely, if not maybe the most resilient city in the whole country. When you talk about return to fast growth, which is what we're looking at, we may not be the fastest growing city. We also, that could be couched in, as it has been in this case, as being expensive. But I think the question for me is not so much whether that's solely accurate. It's like, so what at one level? It's if you think about it, there's many different ways to look at the city. And that study had Sioux City, Idaho, or South Dakota,
Yes.
is the number one most affordable city. So what?
Sioux City Falls, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so it's fine. It's a factor. But when I look at the facts of the way we look at El Paso and the way we see things from the chamber's perspective, I got 1,400 members. I get a lot of data coming in. We work with the city, the county, the state. We have a fairly decent idea of where we are. And I think people who live in El Paso understand this as well. I mean, the economy itself and how it's being shaped we are seeing massive difficulties in trying to keep our supply chains functioning and getting enough people with the Great Resignation and the shifts we have. These are very real issues for us as we try to grow in El Paso. And I have to say, from my perspective, I am seeing businesses come here, and I am seeing a lot of growth in El Paso right now. And in fact, I think it's sort of interesting, because if you think about the issues for the United States and the same for El Paso, as we look at how do we hire people, well, immigration is a very cool and important way to think about that, but it's also very germane to El Paso and our neighbor. And so that's an important thing, and how the Mexican economy is shaping up will affect El Paso a great deal. So those are factors I think are very important to discuss. But I also think it's very important to look at the way the supply chain has been disrupted, and we being an inland
throughout the nation.
Yeah. And we're an inland port city, one of the most important ones in the whole United States. So looking at the infrastructure bill and how we grow our infrastructure and, modernizing I-10, capping it, and doing things like this are all very proactive steps that we're taking as a community to make sure that we're dealing with these issues.
And hopefully we can break out of that designation as being the least affordable. I want to move on. Brian, the Federal Reserve just increased interest rates. How is this going to affect families in the borderland trying to move forward?
Well, if you're talking about home buying, of course, the size of the home you're going to be able to buy is going to be less, or the lower dollar value, just because you're going to be spending more on a monthly mortgage. That's been one of the benefits in this low interest rate environment we've been in, is it gives you the ability to buy more house. I remember the very first house we bought back in the 80s, we had a 13.5% mortgage rate on it right out of college, and everybody told us we had a good deal. And whoever thought we'd be seeing interest rates in the 2s and the 3s like what we've seen. So as interest rates go up, that would probably put a downward pressure on the value of homes, and just from a purchasing standpoint. Of course, it's going to cost businesses more when they go to borrow. to put infrastructure into their businesses. So that's going to rise the cost up a little bit. From an investment standpoint, we haven't seen interest rate increases in a long while. And from an investment standpoint, as you see interest rates start to go up, one thing that's going to do, it's going to put downward pressure on the bond markets. And when that happens, you're going to, it's going to hurt from an investment standpoint if you're using bonds from a defensive standpoint. So it's even though it needed to be done, the main reason they're trying to raise bond interest rates, which they announced 7 rates, the Feds announced yesterday, and they're going to have 5 of them this year. Every time they have a meeting, they're planning on raising them. And so as that happens and we see interest rates start going up, we'll see bond values go down, and it's going to have an impact. But the primary reason is to start curbing this inflation a little bit. Yeah. Inflation over the last 10 years has been running under 2%, and I think we're knocking on the door of 10% just this last year, and we're all seeing that at the gas pumps and at the grocery store, and so it's absolutely having a huge impact on the pocketbooks of every family out here.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's I think that's one of the main reasons from what we hear they're trying to do and why they're raising them so quickly.
It's because of inflation. Quick question, quick answer. Hopefully, how much did you pay for your home back in 1980?
Back in 1980?
Yes, sir.
Well, we paid $21,000.
On that note, we'll take a quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. I'll ask my guests if they have any tips for us to help us stretch our paychecks or battle high property taxes. Also, what will it take for El Paso to shed or get rid of this unfavorable distinction of one of the top 10 least affordable cities in the nation? The response when we come back.
Ashley's Warehouse Inventory Blowout Sale is going on now. Save up to 25% off store-wide. Plus, save an additional 10% off closeout items in stock and ready for delivery. Don't miss it. Only at Ashley.
I know this may look like a classic rooftop chase scene, but it's an Nissan sales event ad. Right on cue. This Rogue's got more power than that CRV. You might want to hold on.
Hurry in and save up to $42.62 on select models.
The action never ends, but these offers will.
The great experiences you have in here, and even out here, all started here. Because the best customer experience always leaves a great impression. GMC, awarded #1 in sales satisfaction by J.D. Power. Step up to GMC with 0% financing on Sierra heavy-duty models.
See your El Paso Las Cruces GMC dealers.
They were just 4 guys from Jersey until they sang their first note and changed the sound of rock and roll forever. Sherry, baby. Jersey Boys, the Tony Award-winning true life musical phenomenon that takes you behind the music and inside the story of Frankie Valli and the 4 Seasons.
Tickets on sale now at elpasolive.com.
Don't miss Ashley's Warehouse Inventory Blowout Sale. Overstocked furniture and mattresses are ready for delivery. And right now, save an additional 10% off closeout items for a limited time only at Ashley.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. I also want to welcome back my guests, Brian Myro and Joy Francisco, as well as David Jerome. Now, I want to show you a map which compares weekly wages in El Paso County to weekly wages in Hudspeth County, a county which is much more rural than El Paso. Mr. Myro, this shows El Pasoans earn less than Hudspeth County. We already know personal income is higher in Las Cruces than here. Your thoughts on the fact that El Pasoans are earning so much more less?
Well, it's got to just be the pressure on the small businesses. Of course, El Paso has majority of its infrastructure is made up of mom and pop businesses. So with the pressure being put on them from just the regulations and just being able to operate coming out of the pandemic and everything, it's been tough. And so that can be one of the reasons, in my opinion, why you're seeing some of that.
Yeah. Joy, you mentioned that the biggest group that's purchasing homes right now are millennials. What tips do you have for them as they go out in search of homes, which, if we just said, there aren't that many homes available, but obviously the price is a lot higher?
The price is higher, but if you look at long-term, real estate is a long game, guys. We all know that. Real estate is a long game. If they would have purchased that home
you can ask someone who bought a home in 1980.
Yeah, ask someone who bought a home, and guess what? Buy your home now, and in 20 years, what will happen? We know El Paso, we're just seeing the beginning growth. That list doesn't really show all that's going on in the borderland, because I know the Amazon plant, for example,
right.
We have investment coming. It's already coming, and the more investment that happens, it spurs on other investment, which is incredible. So my tip for millennials looking, or anyone that's looking, and you're figuring out, well, maybe I should wait, maybe I should rent longer. Guess what? Have you ever heard of a landlord lowering your rent?
No.
Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No.
They found out recently.
And they found out recently. I'm helping families who their rent's increasing $200, $300, $400 a month, and they're like, man, I can't afford that. I'm like, you can't afford not to get your shelter costs fixed as long as you can. Another thing, battle those property taxes. You can file an appointment online with the El Paso County Appraisal District. Another thing that people do not do often enough is shop for property insurance. I did this myself about 1.5 years ago. I received a half of the premium that I was paying in a new policy. That's an easy way to save some money for your property. But bottom line, rent will always be 100% interest. Purchasing real estate is a way to get your costs fixed as much as you can. And guess what? In the last 10 years, our average interest rate was still 7%, average. Are we there right now? No, we're not. Yeah. And then another thing that happens is when they buy those 10-year backed bonds, our interest rates will go down. This is actually good. We need them to fight inflation. I want them to fight inflation. But at the end of the day, we're not seeing the last of higher costs on property because of a supply and demand.
Mr. Jerome, I know you don't find a whole lot of validity to this distinction that El Paso has been placed in, but I want your thoughts. Is this favorable action or distinction, a call to action for our city leaders, and what should they do right away to maybe get rid of that distinction? I know it doesn't bother you a whole lot, and you don't find a whole validity to it.
Well, I don't want to fight that one characterization by one study. I'm worried about bigger trends, not one data point. And so it is something that I, however, don't want to minimize. I do think we need to look at it and pay attention to it. And I do think it comes from a bias within the study to look at fast wage growth cities. But I think, leaving that aside, I do think the things that we can do are sort of address some of these core issues. Right now, for example, we have funny competition within the market and some major trends. So we see really acute shortages of the ability to hire employees, leading to massive wage increases, which are nice. But the inflation rates that we see that are coming from the price increases and things that are because of the supply chain shortages we have are eating away at those gains. And we don't want that to happen as much as possible. So some of the things that we can do have already been discussed at a very tactical level, I think, by Joy and others. But I think also, as a city, I think it's very important for us to be looking at what we can do to make sure that we have El Paso growing. So how do we make sure that we look at our tech ecosystem? How do we look at being a amenity-heavy kind of city, the kind of place that you'd want to move to, that you'd want to take, and if you were a millennial, that you'd want to buy a house and to go to that point. Right. And so I do think our city leaders need to look at all the data points. I don't want them to overreact to this, but I don't think they should ignore it either. And that's basically really how I see it. So the city has been doing a lot of things right. We're emerging from COVID. I think we have to make sure we pay attention to how to grow the city and how do we make sure that we are the kind of place that people want to be in. And I think we're making a lot of those moves right now. So when we look at the expansion of I-10, how to grow that, putting a cap on top of it, for example, is fabulous. How to leverage, employment coming off of Fort Bliss with all the great soldiers that we have. There's another thing we can do. How do we get our manufacturing sector to grow? We're looking at that too. So there's a lot of very good things happening, and I don't want those to be slowed in any way.
Right. Brian, in the 30 seconds that I have left, what tips do you have for our viewers?
Well, I would, the main point I would put across to all the viewers is to control the things that you have control over. There's a lot of things that you have control over: your budgets, you have control over your spending, you have control over how much debt you carry, you have control over things like that. And if you're disciplined, and just remember, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if you're disciplined in the things that you have control over, you're going to have a pretty good shot at overcoming some of these external factors like inflation and things like that we're getting hit with all the time.
Okay, Brian, David, Joy, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us this Sunday evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
And I want to thank you for sharing your Sunday evening with us. Our program has at least acknowledged that many of you are emerging from the pandemic with a tighter budget. Let's hope our city leaders are watching and can do something about reducing the pain. I'm Saul Saenz, and this has been ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Good night y buenas noches.